Hi, welcome to the fourth part of the Persuasive Speaking video lecture. Again, this is on chapter 17. We talked a little bit about logos in the last lecture. Before that, we talked about some general types of persuasive speaking and the rhetorical appeals. We also talked about the Tulin model, my feelings on the way the book handles that, and we had a little introduction to the Rogerian model, and we talked about some different types of argumentation. So if you haven't looked at those, go back and look at those previous videos. Now we're going to go back to Toulmin, and we're going to talk about how you form that kind of argument. So all types of logical argument will have claim and support. So claim is your proposition. It's what you're trying to prove. And support is the evidence that you use to support it. But the warranting, or the way you use that support to prove your claim, can change. And so there are four kind of main ways to do it: arguing from sign, arguing from example, arguing from analogy, and arguing from causation. So arguing from sign is when you support a claim by providing evidence that certain events that signal the claim, the sign, have occurred. So if something tends to happen, or if X tends to happen with Y, then you can guess that Y is happening. A warrant is, or the warrant for this, is when phenomena that usually or always accompany a specific occasion occur, that we can expect that specific situation is occurring or will occur. So this probably isn't the best example, but people tend to eat ice cream in summer. I see a lot of people eating ice cream, therefore it is likely summer. Signs should not be confused with causes. So signs accompany a phenomenon but do not cause it. It's more like correlation than causation. And you can check your reasoning with these questions. So do these signs always or usually accompany the conclusion drawn? Are a sufficient number of signs present? If both of those are yes, then you're probably in a good place for your argument. Are contradictory signs present? If the answer to that is yes, then you're probably not in a good place and you need to look back at those contradictory signs. So an example from the book. So hives and a slight fever are indicators of an allergic reaction. So the indicator signs of an allergic reaction. So if you see hives and a slight fever, you may be looking at an allergic reaction. So arguing from example is when evidence is used as a support. Evidence used as a support is an example of the claim being made. So what is true in the examples provided is or will be true in general or in other instances is the warrant. So for example, the book says, suppose you support Juanita Martinez for president of the local neighborhood council. One of your reasons is that Juanita is electable. You provide several examples of her previous victories to support your claim. She was elected treasurer of her high school, junior class, chairperson of her church youth group, and president of her college sorority. That would be an example of arguing from example. Some questions to check your reasoning. Are enough examples cited? Are the examples typical, and are negative examples accounted for? If you can answer yes to all three of those, then more than likely the argument is strong. Things were falling off my desk. Okay, arguing from analogy. So analogy is supporting a claim with a single comparable example that is significantly similar to the claim as to be strong proof. It's different than an example because you're not using an example of evidence to explain it. You're using something different to make the connection. Analogies are often best when you're looking at abstract ideas. So the example in the book is, suppose that you want to argue that the Cherry Fork Volunteer Fire Department should conduct a raffle to raise money for 3 portable defibrillator units, which is your claim. You could support the claim with an analogy to a single comparable example like this. The Jefferson City Fire Department, which is very similar to that of Cherry Fork, conducted a raffle and raised enough money to purchase 4 units. So your argument is that if they could do it, we can too. And thus it is a feasible option. So the warrant here is what is true for situation A will also be true for situation B, which is similar to situation A. And what is true for situation A will be true in all similar situations. So you choose either or on that. And questions to check your reasoning. Are the subjects being compared similar in every important way? So if you're comparing two cities, are they roughly the same size? Do they have roughly the same demographic population? Things like that. Are any of the ways in which the subjects are dissimilar important to the conclusion? And you would want to answer both of these as, you want to answer the first one as yes and the second one as no. Arguing from causation is supporting a claim by citing events that almost or always lead to a predictable effect or set of events. So the warrant is if A, which is known to bring about B, has been observed, then we can expect B to occur. If you see lightning, you are probably going to hear thunder, because lightning always precedes thunder, because thunder is the sound of the lightning clap. So the example from the book is, in researching Juanita's election campaign, you might discover that she has campaigned intelligently and has won the endorsement of key community leaders. In the past, these two events have been associated with victory, thus Juanita is electable. Questions to check your reasoning. Are the events alone sufficient to cause the stated effects? So you want to check there to see if there are any other variables that you maybe are not accounting for. Do other events accompanying the cited events actually cause the effect? So I'm trying to think of a good example here. A medical example. I'm not coming up with one. But are there other things that might be causing the effect? Are there other variables or contributing factors that maybe you haven't considered? And is the relationship between the thing causing it, and the effect consistent? So on the other side of effective logic is ineffective logic. So logical fallacies are just errors in reasoning. Some common logical fallacies are hasty generalization, so the claim is not supported or is only supported with one weak example. False cause, which is called post hoc. Post hoc in Latin means after the fact. So the alleged cause fails to prove the effect. Either or is an oversimplification that suggests there are only two alternatives. Straw man is when the speaker weakens the opposing perspective by misrepresenting it and then attacking it. In ad hominem are attacks or praises on the person making the argument rather than addressing the argument itself. And for ad hominem, the book uses the example of celebrity endorsements. So celebrity endorsements encourage you to pay attention to the celebrity and not the product. Ad hominem in Latin literally means to the man. So let's look at some of these. Here's some examples of them. So hasty generalization, an example. My friend has only been eating hamburgers, pizzas, and fries for 10 years, and he has no health issues. Therefore, fast food is not unhealthy for you. Well, the friend might be exercising. The friend might actually be eating other things. There might be genetic things. The friend might be 5 and thus at 15 is unlikely to be showing a whole lot of health issues. Or might have been 5 when they met and is now 15. You know, there's a lot of things that could be causing that are not that fast food is not unhealthy for you. So this picture was nice enough to provide a definition. This logical fallacy occurs when someone draws a conclusion based on just a small sample size. In other words, the conclusion is supported by insufficient evidence. False cause is kind of similar. It's when you, this is, I think, ad hoc. As well, when the cause fails to produce the effect. So people died of cancer before cigarettes were invented, therefore smoking doesn't cause cancer. That's obviously an error in reasoning. The fact that cancer existed before cigarettes were invented is irrelevant. The increase in cancer as a result of cigarettes indicates that smoking does cause cancer. So this is a false cause. Either or. I like this one. I've been in this place. Someone finishes their exam early. They're either really smart or really stupid. Well, that's ignoring all the other possibilities. Maybe they studied really hard. Maybe they are highly intelligent but didn't know the material. Maybe they're really stupid and they did know the material. There's a lot of other in-betweens, and an either or argument ignores those. The upturned microscope presents logical fallacies in the lab. Today, the straw man, which is misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to refute. By the way, the internet has so much fun with logical fallacies. You should check those out. Okay, and so here we have a student, and given my contributions to this paper, I think that I deserve to share credit with the first author. Reasonably logical argument. Response: so fame is more important to you than science? Huh? That's sad. Student: I didn't say that. So then the guy responds with, oh, now I'm senile too. So in both places, the guy with the beard and the, assume is the professor, is completely misrepresenting what the student is saying, and then using that to be able to refute it, because they can refute the misrepresented argument instead of the very valid argument. The ad hominem, this is the to the man one, where you attack the person rather than the argument. So your first swan, maybe? Geese? Goose. I think it's a goose. We share many genetic characteristics with ducks because we evolved from a common ancestor. The other goose: you're closed-minded and stupid acorn. You don't know anything. Well, what this goose says has nothing to do with the argument that the first goose is making. It's just attacking the other goose. So it's not actually addressing the argument at all. There are many, many, many logical fallacies out here. These are just a very small sample from one website that actually would fit in a PowerPoint slide. If you want to check out more of them, go to yourlogicalfallacyis.com or the Owl Purdue. But both are pretty good sites on learning more about logical fallacies if that's interesting to you, or if you just want to check out logical fallacy memes. We had enough time for this. So Kairos is, yes, we are still on rhetorical appeals. Kairos is time. So unlike the other three, we don't talk about it much in writing, because writing is meant to kind of be eternally present. This is why you write literary analysis in the present. So timing isn't as important because someone might come back to that piece 10 years from now. But speeches do rely on it more, and it's closely related to exigence, as talked about in chapter 11. So kairos is the Greek word meaning right, critical, or opportune moment. And it pertains to choosing the right argument for the right time for the right people. So things like choosing current data, referencing current events, explaining why this matters now, calls to action, sense of immediacy, basically anything that appeals to time is kairos. So here's kind of a quick summary of everything that we've kind of talked about with these rhetorical appeals. So ethos is about character. You focus on trustworthiness of the speaker, reputation, credentials, and experience. Pathos is emotion. It's not suffering. It's actually pity and shock and pity, I think, is how Aristotle tended to use it, but it means emotion. Focus on values and beliefs of audience, empathy and emotion. Logos focus on the message, reason, and the data to support the claim. It means, don't think it means word. It might be translated that way. And kairos is focused on perfect timing, timeliness, appropriate tone, structure, and, well, time. And effective arguments will generally use some combination of these four. Most speeches writing will rely more on some than others. So narrative speaking is heavily pathos, and informative speaking is going to be more heavily logos. But effective persuasive speeches use all of them. An informative speech might use a personal anecdote in the introduction as an appeal to pathos. A narrative speech might use a chronological structure as an appeal to logos. Narrative speech is also likely from the person who experienced it, which is an appeal to ethos. And using a variety of different rhetorical appeals to different learning and listening styles, makes your speech more interesting and gives the audience a holistic perspective on why the topic is important. So we'll stop this here before we get into persuasive speech patterns, and I'll be right back in a few minutes.